Thank you. Works.
Okay, then. Let's say Shalom Aleichem. Meshech chochma for Parshas Ki Tavo. And last year we covered a lot of the beginning of the parsha. Now we'll take a look at a pasuk that's a little bit more into the parsha, and that is Perek Chav Zayin, pasuk Daled. And it would probably pay to open up the Chumash and to see it inside. So in Perek Chav Zayin, Vayitzav Moshe, at the beginning of Perek Chav Zayin, Beziknei Yisrael, Es Ha'am Lemor, Shamar Es HaMitzvah, etc. And V'haya Bayom Asher Ta'avru Es HaYarden, El Ha'aretz Asher Hashem Elokecha Nosein Loch, when you cross the Jordan, V'akemoso L'cha Avodim Gedolos, and you'll set up great boulders. And we'll soon see Rashi. There was an unbelievable miracle here that took place. But then the pasuk says, "V'kasavta aleim," etc., etc. And then pasuk Daled, "V'hayabav rechem es hayarden takivu es havonim ha'ela asher anochi mitzaveh eschem hayom," etc. And Rashi writes that Vekimosi Lecha, which is in Pasuk Beis, by Yarden. So this is amazing, because Rashi is telling us that these stones were actually in the Yarden. They were grounded in the Jordan River. And Rameir Simcha is a little bit bothered by the fact that this is not explicit. What a great miracle that you can set up stones that are in the Yarden under the water, and yet they rise up above the water. I mean, this is something unimaginable. Says Rameir Simcha, Hadalo Tziva Befeirush Rak V'Remez. If not for Rashi, we would have missed the whole point of this miracle. Says Rameir Simcha, quoting the Rambam, in Hilchas Yisodei HaTorah Perek Ches, the Rambam is of the opinion that miracles, as far as the Jewish people are concerned at least, are not designated for the purpose of proving God's existence. We don't believe in God because of miracles. That's not the basis of our faith. We only believe in God because we believe in God. And we have miracles only lefiat tzarech, when it's absolutely necessary because of some unusual set of circumstances. Then and only then does God bring about a miracle. But in this case, if Hashem would have written and commanded this miracle explicitly, then something that had to happen would not happen. Or if you want to say it the other way around, something that would have to happen but shouldn't have to happen. So what's this all about? Amru b'Yushalmi, Reish Perek Vav b'Shvius, Deshalach Yoshua Gimel Ksavin. When Yoshua was about to enter into the land in order to subdue the nations, the 7 nations that occupied the land, he sent them 3 documents. And he offered them to sign any of those 3. One of them was to come forward and sign a peace treaty. The other was just to leave the land, just pack out. Find yourself another country in the Middle East. And the third document was, if you want to come to battle, we will battle you. And there'll be a frontal military campaign. So now one of the 3 documents was an offering of peace. V'hine im hishlimu, if any of the nations of the world, of the land, would decide to make peace with Israel, hayu over v'sayardim b'spinos kiderech eis shalva b'maboros hayarden. In other words, somehow that peace treaty would be signed by, and at the Yarden, by, at the stones that were miraculously founded in the ground, in the bottom of the Yarden. Now Rabbi Meir Simcha says, I think I found the key to unlock the mystery as to why this entire miracle, which was necessary, had to be camouflaged. And this has to do with Rabbi Meir Simcha's philosophy about freedom of choice. It was absolutely necessary to guarantee that the nations of the world, again, when I say the world, in this case, I mean the land of Israel, would have freedom of choice. They could easily decide in favor of peace. But no one was forcing them to decide in favor of peace. As a matter of fact, they did not decide for peace. They didn't opt for that, one of the 3 alternatives. But Yoshua had offered them that possibility. Says Rabbi Meir Simcha, Im yashlimu harei lo ya'amidu bayarden. V'yedias hanivroi machreches. He says the following. There's a fundamental difference between what man knows is going to happen, like a Navi, as opposed to what God knows what's going to happen. What God knows is going to happen does not remove and undermine freedom of choice, because that's the nature of God's knowledge. It's very unique. So we can always reconcile freedom of choice with God's foreknowledge. That's called Yediyah Bechira. But if man, for example, a prophet knows what's going to happen, then it's going to happen. Now, if the Nevi'im would know that the people of the lands will not come forward for peace, then that's exactly what's going to happen. There's no other option. So God had to deny that knowledge to all the people of Israel and to its leaders and camouflage it, because if they would have known, then the nations of the world would have to deny the offering of peace, so that in order to guarantee that the nations of the world would have the option of choosing for peace, and they would instead abuse their freedom of choice and reject peace, then Yoshua is telling them there's going to be a face-to-face military confrontation, and we know the outcome. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to see to it that we defeat the enemies, and we are Nochel Es Haaretz, we will inherit the land. Now, I'd like you to fast forward in the same chapter to Pasuk Tes. And let's again see it inside. Vaydaber Moshe. Now, I'm going to skip a few words here deliberately as a pedagogic tool. El Kol Yisrael Lema. Haskei Sushma Yisrael Hayom Hazeh Niyesalam Shamata Bekol Eschukov, etc. And Moshe Rabbeinu admonishes the people today to accept a commitment to fulfill the mitzvahs. But I skipped 2 words. Vaydaber Moshe, and then it says, Ve'akohanim ve'halavim. Who is addressing the people of Israel? Not just the leader, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu, but also the Kohanim and the Leviim. As Rabbi Simcha, we don't find this anywhere in the Torah. Masha Dibru Hacha HaLeviim, Leviim means the Leviim and the Kohanim, Davar Shalom Matzinu Dugmasa Torah. We have no precedent to such a thing. Why is it that here, in Arvos Moav, at the end of the 40-year period in the Midbar, it's the Leviim that address the people of Israel, warning them and encouraging them to accept the covenant and commit themselves to hearken to the words of God. Nearly, Al Pima de Isa, the Medrash, Tanchuma Parshas Nitzavu, Shalosh Brisos Koras HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There were 3 different occasions where God enters into a covenant with Israel. And the Tanchuma wants to understand why we need a third. 2 should have sufficed. The first one was Kshiyatzu Mitzrayim. That we understand. That only encompassed the people who were part of the exodus. But they died out, and now we have a new generation. Not only that, the covenant for Yotzei Mitzrayim does not include Kabbalah Satorah Nasa V'Nitra, so we needed another bris at Sinai. But then we get to the third bris, which is here in Arvos Moav. Why is that necessary? Says the Tanchuma, the second bris was violated. When the Jewish people worshiped the Egel. And now we're left with a gaping hole. We are missing that bris that took place at Har Sinai, and it's got to be replaced. It's now going to be replaced at Arvos Moav.
Berzon?
Yes?
I thought that second brit was renewed or restored after Moshe got forgiveness in Kitisa. I thought that was they restored that brit.
I would say the following. I don't know if you were with me last night, but even though there was a commitment, but it was nevertheless Kaf Alem Har Kigigis. And we needed at Arvos Moav a commitment to enter into the bris, which was a matter of volition. Now, where did the Kohanim and the Leviim come into play here? Heim lo hayu be'ega. Kideisa bechagiga davavam and beis. They didn't worship the Egel. The Kohanim and the Leviim, the entire Shevet Levi, were outside of the Ched Egel. And therefore, they didn't need the bris. The whole purpose of this bris was to replace the bris of Chorev in the aftermath of Ched Egel. They weren't part of the Ched Egel, so they were still very much in the original bris. L'chein hacha, hayom hazeh niyesa la'am. Now you're becoming a nation, meaning you're entering into a covenantal relationship with the Almighty. Rak al Yisrael. It could only be that Yisrael minus Shevet Levi would enter into this bris. Meaning they were not in any way guilty of violating the bris at Har Sinai. Lachen heim hamedabrim el kol Yisrael. They will address the people of Israel, and they will ask the people of Israel to once again commit themselves, but this time out of volition, without compulsion, to accept and fulfill the mitzvah Torah. V'hinei b'bris rishon kiblu terem sheshama mitzvahs. Now Rabbi Simcha says that this commitment and bris which is replacing the bris at Har Sinai, has one major advantage to it. Its scope is that much wider and greater than the commitment at Har Sinai. Why? Because when Klal Yisrael said Nasa v'nishma, at that point, Nasa, we will do the mitzvahs, but v'nishma, and then we'll hear about the mitzvahs. Kodem sheshamatem osa, even before you heard the mitzvahs, you committed yourself with Nasa v'nishma. Hechi kosher. You don't know how difficult this commitment is going to be to fulfill, to live up to the Taryag mitzvahs. In tuchlu lamod ba. But hacha, now we have a whole new bris. They've already heard all the mitzvahs, the demands of God, the 613, and all the onshim, the punishments for violation. L'chedomar haskes. Haskes means listen carefully. Chashov heitev and tuchel lamodvo. Haskes v'shma. Now you're listening, and you know what the challenge is all about. You're entering into this covenant with full knowledge. Is then kabel aleim lasosam. Now you can accept upon yourself to fulfill the mitzvahs. Now your bris is truly a reflection of your commitment to fulfill the mitzvahs. And now we'll fast forward to Perek Chof Ches, and let's take a look at Pasuk Ches. Again, always good to see it inside. Perek Chof Ches, Pasuk Ches. Moshe Rabbeinu promises that if we'll fulfill the mitzvahs, then Hashem will give the enemies of Israel into the hands of Israel. Yitzav Hashem itchas habracha. Not only that, but God will bless basamecha, the grains that are growing in your land. Ubekol mishlach yodecha beirachecha ba'aretz asher Hashem Elokecha nosein lach. And on this basamecha, Chazal say, Eina bracha chala el adavar samui min ha'ayin. A bracha is bestowed upon something that is hidden from the eye. And the Gemara tells us in Tainus that they had the grain stored in a silo. They didn't count it, because if they would have counted it, then it's no longer samui min ha'ayin, it's exposed, and they know exactly the value. They didn't know the value. Uberacha ba'aretz asher Hashem Elokecha nosein lecha. Nosein lach. So what is the bracha here in the aretz that's indicated here in this pasuk? And why the emphasis here on asamim? And Rabbi Simcha has a gewaldige chidush. He says, "Me olam lo amar adam sar li amakom Yishalayim mishnin avos, v'zeh she'im yisrabu anshe Yisrael tachzikem haaretz." The land itself will accommodate myriads, large populations, as we go through population explosion. And the ground will supply the sustenance necessary for the myriads of people as they propagate and expand their population. The land itself will be blessed. It will be wider and greater than it was at the time of Kibush. Could you imagine what Rabbi Simcha is saying? There's a miracle here in the land itself. The land will expand. Just like Asamcha will expand, the Osem, and it's not an advertisement for any company, but the Osem will expand, so too the land will expand. Because the bracha now of Asamecha is now chal on the Oretz itself. Uberachecha ba'aretz, like ba'asamecha, ba'aretz, inherent in the land. And Kemoshe habracha ba'asamecha ha'osem u'dara misparech, because it's somewhere min ha'ayin, it's concealed. Kain ha'aretz u'dara misparech. The land itself will expand. The next piece in Rab Meir Simcha is Pasuk Yud Dalet. Now, in order to appreciate this piece in the meshech chochma, we go back to the beginning of Perek Chav Ches. V'haya im shamoa tishma b'kol Hashem Elokecha, etc. And then v'nosnecha Hashem Elokecha elyon al kol goyei ha'aretz. So that's if we observe the mitzvahs of Hashem. Then we fast forward to Pasuk Yud Dalet. Lo tasur mikol advarim asher anochi mitzaveh eschem hayom yominu smol lo leches achrei Elohim acherim le'avdam. And then v'haya im lo shamoa im lo tishma b'kol Hashem Elokecha. You know what? I think we did this last year. My mistake. So let's just fast forward a little bit further to Pasuk Mem Zayin. And this is the Torah's explanation for why the Tocha, why the Klolos would come about. And of course, a very famous Pasuk. Pasuk Mem Zayin. Tachas asher lo avadetu as Hashem Elokecha b'simcha u'b'tuv levav meirov kol. So Meir Simcha says there are two words here at the end of the pasuk that just are hanging in midair. Meirov kol. I mean, after all, the Torah is telling us that we did not serve Hashem with simcha. And Meirov kol, what's Meirov kol? Hasiba shelo avadeta. Why didn't you serve God with simcha? Machbas shahaylecha simcha v'tov lev. You had a different type of simcha. Meirov kol. There's a rov kol simcha, and there's a genuine simcha. The real McCoy desired simcha. And he quotes a pasuk in Hosea. The pasuk says, Al tismach Yisrael. Strange pasuk, no? What do you mean Al tismach Yisrael? Here the Torah is accusing us of serving without simcha. What is Al tismach Yisrael? El gil ka'amim. There's another type of simcha which is called gil, and that's ka'amim. That's an imitation of the nations of the world. What is the simcha of the nations of the world? That's ribui hatova smechin. The more physical pleasures and possessions that they have, the happier that they are. And now, Hosea Novi is saying to them, Al tismach Yisrael, don't imitate the Gil Ha'amim. Lokei nasan lecha Hashem. That's not why God has bestowed upon you all the goodness. Shetzarich lichios bestapkus. On the contrary, the attribute that we want to strive for is histapkus, to be happy with what we have, to be satisfied with the limited amount of physical wealth and possessions that we have. The rov kol, and these last two words at the end of the pasuk are describing the reason why simcha v'tov lev. If our simcha v'tov lev was because we acknowledge that everything that we have is from God and we're very satisfied with whatever He dishes out to us, then we would serve Hashem b'simcha. But instead, our simcha is a simcha v'tov lev that imitates the goyim me'rov kol. And our simcha, ezu osha samech b'chelko. He doesn't have to be very wealthy with a fat bank account. He's got to be happy with what he has. If we appreciate that God bestowed upon us these gifts, then we're satisfied with whatever He gave us, and we thank Hashem out of a great, deep sense of gratitude. That's the genuine simcha. And then if I have a sense that God was good to me and He gave me what I need, right? Called sarki, so I could serve Him and I could give tzedakah and everything else, then that's a simcha which is hagun b'einei Hashem, but not the simcha of rov kol. That's the simcha that belongs to the nations of the world, lahavdil. And in the next paragraph, let's look at the end of this pasuk, or actually it's the next pasuk. The avadat oivecha, the great klola that we will be enslaved by our enemies. And then it says, ubechoser kol. Will be left in the exile with almost nothing. The choser kol. Says Rabbi Simcha, what does it mean by choser kol? What is this kol? We are lacking and denied kol. Zed das. The word kol means das. And in parentheses, he tells you to look in the Gemara in the Darim. The Gemara in the Darim has one opinion that choser kol means he doesn't have a shulchan, he doesn't have a ner, he doesn't have an isha, he doesn't have a shamash, there's no one to serve him, to help him. But Rabbi Simcha says that ultimately, kol, the kol that we're missing is das. And this is a continuation of the previous pasuk that we spoke about. Achas asher lo avaretem es Hashem Elokecha b'simcha u'b'tulev mirov kol. Rov kol means we had some kol, but not all kol. We didn't have all das. We were missing das. Yitochen, what is the das that would bring about a situation where man is satisfied with what he has and he expresses heartfelt, genuine gratitude to Hashem? We have to learn this from Berzon. The Gemara in Brachos Memches tells us about Berzon. Berzon was blessed, and he made the following statement: Kama yigios yoga odom arishon, ad shemotza pas v'yochal charash, zora, kotzar, omar, dosh, zora, borar, tochan, hirkid, losh, v'yof. At what point could Adam Arishon eat a loaf of bread after he toiled in 11 different labors? Vani, I wake up, I go down to the local bakery, bake shop. Mashkim umotzi kol elam sukanim lefanai. I've got full loaves of bread. I don't have to go through all this tircha of 11 malachos, beginning with meleches charisha, which is very backbreaking, and ending with afiyah. Furthermore, says Berzon, how difficult and a challenge was it for other Rishon to create, manufacture clothing. Gazaz, Libain, Nipates, Tava, Orag, and Achakach, he had a beged lilbosh. Vani, I wake up, Mashki b'motzi kol elim esukanim lefanai. And I walk in and I buy clothing in a local clothing shop. Based on the Chachmei Musar of Meir Simcha says, Kach tzarech ha'adam, this is what man should be. Lisbonim, he should contemplate El Chazdei Abori Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hu, Al Ishtalmus HaSichli, the fact that the world has become more technologically advanced. Asher Kama Yigios Yoga, and now he talks about spirituality in the religious realm. Take a look at Avram Avinu. Look at all the challenges that he had. He lived in a world of idolatry. Kama Yigios Yoga V'chakiros V'nisyonos Amal Avram Avinu Achis Bonim Laharchik HaGiluim, meaning the idols, Ulahaskil Amitas Mitzius Hashem Yisparach, Yichudo Ashkachaso, Isharas HaNefesh. These are all fundamentals of the faith. The Achakach, then we had Yitzchak and Yaakov, Omlu Avos HaKadoshim, and Yagiu Avoseinu B'Mitzrayim. And after all this long history, starting from Avram Avinu, Re'uyim lekabel ta'yig mitzvahs Torasenu HaKadosha, now the Jewish people, as descendants and accepting, receiving the legacy of the Amos, now they're ready to be makabel the Torah at Har Sinai. Vehema kulam oros behirim umazhirim es hanefesh. Who brought the light into the nefesh of Ish Yisraeli? Asher b'kol achas men yukal odom lisdabek v'tzachtzachus ha'amitis dveikus liyochid amitis ribonet shalom u'mashe yoga kulam. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants that came before me, that worked and toiled to break the idol worship and come to believe in one God. And now animotzias kol elam esukanim lefanai. Everything is given to me on a silver platter. I inherit the belief in the tenets of our faith, and it's given to me without any work, without any toil. Is therefore tzorech or kama, it's almost infinite. Kama tzorech ha'odam hanilbav leo sameach. This should bring a person to a great deal of simcha, ulahodos l'Hashem Yisrael atov, and to akar satov, to express our gratitude to the Ribono Shel Olam, shezikeu l'chol zeh, that we merit all this, the bread that we eat, the clothes that we wear, but on a spiritual level, all our fundamental beliefs were handed to us by those who came before us and toiled and overcame challenges. And now we have to thank Hashem that He gave us this chus, this merit of having all this emunah and faith in God that's poured forth in front of us. And zeu b'simcha b'tuv leiv meirov kol. Going back to the previous pasuk. Zeu meirov hadeos hatzodkos hamaskilos hamazhiros b'sechel loki asher zei yikara ribui mikol. So we talk about kol now in this context. It means the entire enterprise with all of the tzidkus and the maskilus and the closeness to God. Shlomo, V'yitein Elokim chochma l'shlomo tfuna harbe mi'od v'rochav lev kechol asher al sfas hayom. What is rochav lev? Rochav lev is parallel to the words here in our pasuk, Meirov kol. Ukechol asher al sfas hayom. And at the end of this paragraph, because we're running out of time, I have something very important to learn with you. He says, Al zet tzarech ha'adam l'smoach v'loses shevach v'odoya l'Hashem yisbarach me'omek halev. So this is a tremendous pitch for Akar Satov to recognize and appreciate real and achieve real simcha. If I'm not mistaken, I would just add a comment here as a note. Have you heard of Rav Avigdor Miller, Zichron Livracha? He wrote books. He wrote a whole book about garments, about manufacturing garments, in order to give us more of a feeling from Malbich Arumim. You know, every day by rote, we thank Hashem for giving us clothing. But if you trace the science and the technology of creating clothing, it's lo pashut, as we would say. And the Chovas HaLevavos says that the Yisodus of Yadus, of being a Fruma Yid, is gratitude, is Hakar Satov. And that's what we see here in this presentation of Reb Meir Simcha. Now I have a little bit of a chiddush for you. And I hope you'll forgive me for not, I don't know how to do these fancy things, you know, like share, you know, screen sharing, and all that stuff. But if by chance, and if not, it'll be Torah Shebal Peh, you can open up meshech chochma for Parshas Emor, that's Sefer Vayikra. I see everybody running to get their other volume of Reb Meir Simcha, of the meshech chochma. So I'll wait till you get it. All right. Now, what do I want to learn with you from the meshech chochma in Parshas Emor? You know, the Parshas Emor is the Parsha of the Moadim, and we have Rosh Hashanah coming around the bend. And by the way, what do we read next Shabbos? Both Nitzavim and Vayelech, or just Nitzavim? Anybody know? In any event, even if it's Nitzavim and Vayelech, it's very short. So I thought that maybe, I'm assuming we'll get together next Friday. If there's any change, please let me know. And we would have a 2-part series on Meshech Chochma for Rosh Hashanah. I'll try to get some Nitzavim in there. Chaim, what did you find? Do you have a calendar? I don't have my calendar handy right now.
Oh, just a second.
I think it's
just
maybe
Nitzavim. Just Nitzavim.
Oh, it's just Nitzavim, so it's a very short parsha. And we did it last year. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to get a grasp on Reb Meir Simcha's insights into Rosh Hashanah. I hope that's okay with you.
More
now,
than okay.
If you do have a chumash, which that you should have, and you open up to Parshas Emor, that's Vayikra Chav Gimel. We notice something very interesting, and you know, Reb Meir Simcha is always very sensitive to the contiguity in the psukim in the Torah. So we have here in Pasuk Chav Gimel, so it's Chav Gimel, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe Limor, Daber Bnei Yisrael Limor, B'chodesh Hashvi B'chod Lachodesh, etc., Zichron Trua, etc. This is the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah. What came before this pasuk? And what we have before it is a section that deals with what we call matnas aniyim. For example, we have leket, and the Torah says, it's the very last pasuk before Rosh Hashanah, Los chale pas sodcha b'kutzrecha, which means you have to leave peah. Leket kitzircha lo salaket. If you cut with the sickle and certain grain fell to the ground, you have to leave it for the ani. And lo ani v'lager tazovo so. And then immediately afterwards, the mitzvah and the holiday of Rosh Hashanah. Rameir Simcha is bothered by two things. Number one, what is leket shikra peah matnas aniyim have to do with Rosh Hashanah? Why was Rosh Hashanah placed immediately afterwards? And the second issue is, why is Rosh Hashanah at the end of the summer months? And Rabbi Simcha is going to build a case that at face value, l'chora, a more appropriate time for the judgment would have been in the wintertime or at the end of the wintertime. He quotes a medrash. And the medrash says the following. Yirmiyah Navi says, Ki esa kola b'chol hagoyim. And the prophet Yirmiyah prophesizes kola. There'll be destruction. The nations will be decimated. And he adds the following comment in the Medrash. Kol hagoyim mechalim sadoseim v'esek kola. That in contrast to the Jew, who does not cut down his entire field, he leaves part of his field for the aniyim, the guy doesn't do that. He's mechala, he cuts down the entire field without any concern for the aniyim. Later on, the Medrash is going to say that even when the aniyim come by, they get rejected, they get thrown out. So Hashem says, lo kola, your punishment will be kola. Kola means you will be cut down. Aval atem, but the Medrash says, einchem mechalim sadosehem. But you don't cut down your entire field. You leave part of it for the aniyim. It's there for lo esekol. I will not cut you down. Hado dichsiv lo sechala pias sodcha. Then the last two words in the Medrash Tanchuma, ubachodesh hashvi, which is the next puzzle. Pirush, meaning Rabbi Simcha wants to understand, what's the connection here between the pasuk of Los Chala Pasodcha and B'Chodesh Hashvi, the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah? He says, the Chsiv, the pasuk says in Tehillim, V'hu yishpot tevel b'tzedek, yodin le'umim b'meishar. God will judge with righteousness and fair judgment, tzedek, all the nations of the world. And now he quotes the Yushalmi. Yushalmi says at the beginning of Rosh Hashanah that Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu dones adam ela b'asher hu sham. Man is judged by where he is at that moment, the moment of judgment. Meaning, it would seem logical that the moment of judgment, if God was, how should I say, kicking in favor of Israel, would have been B'yamos HaGeshamim during the winter months. Why? HaYisraeli Yoshev V'Yosek B'divrei Torah V'mitzvahs. The weather conditions are such that you can't go out to the fields and cultivate. It's too cold, etc., etc. So you dedicate your time, your winter months, to extra learning of Torah and mitzvahs. Hagoy, on the other hand, Osek B'Taivas HaOlam. If he's not out in the fields during the winter, he's having a blast. What we call the pursuit of happiness, to use an American term. Ubidvar Masurim, and very often he gets involved in immorality and so forth. Uvimos Hachama, Yatsa Adam Lepala. Even the Jewish people have to go out and earn a living. Shneim, both the Jews and the non-Jews, are mutradim b'avodas hadama, b'katzir, b'batzir, b'yasiv. Nimtza, shneim boim lebal gmul b'Rosh Hashanah, zebelo mitzvah v'zebelo averos. So the Goyim are not doing any mitzvahs, but at least they're not doing any averos because they're too busy in the fields. And the Jews are coming now without mitzvahs because they don't have time to dedicate to the mitzvahs. Hello, hayoroi likva yom adin b'Pesach. At the end of the winter should have been the yom adin. Sha'az haya Yisraeli mole mitzvahs. That's when a Jew is full of mitzvahs. Basher hu sham. Hanachri mole averos, because they're not out there working. Now they're free to hoopla and do whatever they want. If God has our interest in mind, then the best opportune time period for din would have been at the end of the winter, not at the end of the summer, when we have hardly any merits to show for ourselves because we don't have time. And the goyim themselves have no averis because they don't have time for averis. That's not a good time for judgment. They are Inyan. Here's the secret. This is pure chidush. What we're learning is pure creativity from the mind of Rabbi Simcha. Imagine we're sitting at his feet in the city of Dvinsk, hearing this chidush, this radical revolutionary chidush. Gemara tells us in Meshech Bava Basra a story about a certain Binyamin Atzadik. That's what his name was. Shaklu Zchuyosa. They were judging him. Apparently, it was time for him to leave this world. So it was the judgment on the Yom HaMisa. But Shaklu Zchuyosa, the Sanegar came forward and said to Ribono Shalom, I want to explain to you the merits of this Binyamin. And the Gemara tells us the following story. This Binyamin Atzadik was in charge of dispensing with communal tzedakah funds. He was the Gabbai tzedakah. And at one point, there was a tremendous drought in the land, and there was tremendous starvation, and a woman comes forward begging for money from the tzedakah pushka. And she says that she and her 7 sons are starving to death. And Binyamin responds, there's almost nothing left in the kupa. I can't give you anything. She says, we're going to starve. We're going to die. So Binyamin digs into his own pocket and he takes out whatever monies he has. And he saves the lives of a woman and her 7 sons. And this was during Shnei Batzoros. Omaru Pirnasa Mishalo. He saved their lives. Liyamim, not long afterwards, Chalav and Natal Amavis. And he himself, Binyamin HaTzadik, was on his deathbed. Amru Malachi Ashos Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shel Olam, Atah Marta Kol HaMakayim Nefesh Achas MiYisrael Ki Ilukiyim Olam Molech, Ubinyamin HaTzadik Hichya Isha V'Shivas Bonea Yemos Yamus, he should die. He saved the world, her and her 7 sons. And B'Shana Mu'atas Halalu, he still has a long life to live. Miyad, Karolo Gzardino, and Hosifalo Esr V'Shtayim Shana Al Shnos. Whole discussion about why 22. But his life was extended for 22 years. V'hinei, says Rav Merson, B'shlosha prakim nidonim al tvuah. There are 3 periods of time, as the Mishnah has it in Rosh Hashanah, when we are judged for the tvuah, which is parnasaso shel adam. What's unique about Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah Aleph Tishrei is not a judgment on possessions, but on life itself. Al chayav midonim b'Rosh Hashanah. V'hinei tzarech lios mida b'mida. God will decide whether or not we deserve to live based on the principle of mida keneged mida, which probably means we don't deserve to live, but Hashem will spare us for another year because of mida keneged mida. Yisraeli shezora v'charash v'ider v'nikesh v'kotzar v'nosei meshech hazora. Imagine all the work and the toil, months and months, that culminate on the day of Ktsira, when he reaps the land. And the Torah says to him, Lo sechala pi'as sodcha. Don't take it all in. Shochach, he forgot certain kernels, wants to come back and take them. Lo toshu lekachto. The Torah says, don't go back and take them. Nafal me'achorav hakotzir. Something fell over his shoulder as he was doing the sickling. Lo telake. Don't go back and collect it. V'ein zeh matana kitrumos u'maisros. When you give a gift of truma maisros, you have tovas hana. You give it to the Kohen and the Levi of your choice. Yodea leminitan, and he knows that he wants to give it to this Kohen, this Levi. But here, in Matnas Aniyim, Rak Aziva Ksivu, leave it behind. Misha Bo Litol, whoever comes, no tell. Beinshu Roy, Verhagun Bienov. Oh, lo, this would not have been his choice. He doesn't like this honor. He doesn't think he's an upstanding citizen. But it doesn't matter. He doesn't make any differentiations. He leaves it behind. That's called Azima. V'yim. And by the way, Chaim, you'll hear me speak about this tomorrow in Shul. What's today? Today's Friday, tomorrow in Shul. So don't be bored by it, because I'm in love with this Rameir Simcha, this piece. V'yim kenu liachar kol yigiyosov ha'amolo. After all his toil, Nasan Chaim, he's giving life itself. Lemi, Shalo Rotze, he would want to give him life. Lo Yodea Mimu, if he's Roy, if he's not Roy. Velo Yishkalu. And now he's being judged on Rosh Hashanah. L'chaim, or to the opposite. Chaim Roy Lichios, does he deserve life? You're going to take away his life and write him down in the book of the Mesim? Hello, that would not be fair. Lachem, when we judge this person, bein roy, bein lo roy, whether he's worthy or not, he's probably not worthy. Who's worthy? Yosifu lo chayim, because of mida keneged mida. So the key moment is the moment of ktsira at the end of the summer months when he reaps his harvest, because then it's when he fulfills these great mitzvahs, bein lo roy, bein shela, bein rotza, bein os, bein yodea, bein any of them. Okay, now Nachri, what are the Goyim doing at the end of the summer? Asheru Mole v'Gadish Basama v'Yakavav Yifrotzu. They have boundless produce. V'im Yavo Ani. And now the poor person comes, v'Yishal Ma'at, just give me a little bit from your wealth. Halo Yachlimeu v'Yashiveu Reikom. Is Ech Yaktsuva Lo Chayim? Is Zeu Shenemar, that's what the pasuk means. Yishpo Tevel B'Tzedek. Tzedek means B'Schus HaTzedek. V'Lachein Yadim Li'umos V'Meisharim. God will judge the nations. This Yom Adin is a judgment for both Klal Yisrael and the nations of the world. Lachein, now we understand the very next pasuk. After the Matnas Aniyim, B'Chodesh Hashvi Zichron Trua. Batzalomar Lachein Nikva Rosh Hashanah. The Yom Adin B'Chodesh Hashvi. In the 7th month, following the summer. So to summarize the beauty and the insight of Rameir Simcha, his kasha was just overwhelming. I said to myself, who can answer such a kasha? I don't even know how to take the first step. At the end of the winter, when the goyim are full of taivas, and we are dedicating ourselves during the winter months to Torah and to Maisim Tovim, that would have been the appropriate moment of Basheru Sham to judge the Jewish nation and the nations of the world. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu postpones the judgment till after the summer. And that teaches us that at the end of the summer, we're ready to dedicate our ktsir, which is the culmination of all our labor, for leket, for shikha, for peah, for all the gifts. We don't know who's getting these gifts. We don't make favorites and select. There's no selection process here. And like Binyamin Atzad, who was given an extra 22 years of his life because he sustained the lives of a woman and 7 children. And Mida Keneged Mida, he saved lives, he will live. That's what the din of Rosh Hashanah is all about. It's all about Mida Keneged Mida. It's not about Tzchuyos. Because if you start weighing on the scale, his pluses, his minuses, not good. The how do you say, the projection, the diagnosis, whatever the word is, not good. But we need Mida Keneged Mida. And if at the end of the process he saved lives with leket shikha peh, without differentiating, there's no prejudice here, no choice, there's no tovas hanoah like there is in Trumas and Maasros. Called dichli yeseh v'yechol, then he deserves to be written. Saving lives gives us the ability and the worthiness of being saved on Yom Adin. Yiratzon, may it be His will that we all are zocheh on this Yom Adin for life. And b'li neder, if you would be with me next week, if it works without your schedule, I'd like to continue. We'll do a little bit of an Nitzavim, but I would like to again get our introduction to Rosh Hashanah based on the writings of the Meshech Chochma. So please bring both Sefer Vayikra, Sefer Dvarim, and also Sefer Shmos, if you have the Meshech Chochma. And with that, I take leave and thank you and have a wonderful Shabbos Parshas Kitov.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.